Joining me to chat in this episode is Shah, a rapper based here in Atlanta that's from Toronto. I thought it would be really great to have a musician come on to talk about how they're going through this pandemic and keeping the music going. Thanks for joining me, Shah.
Brad, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Let's do this.
Can you tell me a little bit more about you so that our audience that isn't familiar knows about your music style and a little bit about where you come from and what you're doing?
So I'm a rapper, born and raised in Toronto. Atlanta is really the city that launched my career. I was in Atlanta for the first time for what was supposed to be one night for a show here about 3 years ago. And then once we landed, I was here with my small team and we felt something in Atlanta. Like, all right, there's something a little bit more here going on than anywhere else. So that day turned into a weekend, turned into a week, turned into a month, and then it was just relentless. The opportunity that's in Atlanta for any rapper who has drive and talent and skill, there's more opportunity here at the street level than anywhere else. And that's how I connected with Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Atlanta already had something going for me, which is why this was the city that launched my career. And I think that why Atlanta has that quality is something that's just inherent to the city, specifically in that when people in Atlanta see someone doing something creative that's on a new wave, there's no hating, there's no judgment, there's no jealousy. Atlanta, I think now because they've seen so many rappers pop off, it's even easier. But they just believe in you. They'll ride your wave. There's this support from the very start, the very starting level that no city can touch right now. So that's how it happened.
So it's great that you have this city and this base that is so supportive, but you have over these years picked up and gotten a lot of notoriety and following in other countries even. So I'm guessing, music being a digital asset, it's something that can spread pretty easily, but how did that come about, and how has that maybe helped you during this time, having that background of already being active online?
I do have fans all over the world, especially relative to a rapper who's only had music out there properly distributed for 3 or 4 years, who's remained independent. Relative to that, I do have a very broad international fan base. So I toured Europe last summer. I have fans in India, where I've never done a show, which makes sense though, because I'm brown. My parents are born in India. So there's a bit of a connection there. But how that's happened beyond the places where I've performed and the promotion in those cities and my performance led to a fan base, which is a logical connection. Other than those situations, how I've found my fan base, the real answer is I don't know, because I'm not a master of the internet. And the way that I've achieved most of my success, starting in Atlanta, and maybe it's because Atlanta sort of really taught me the game, is that Atlanta in a lot of ways is old school music industry, because it's still putting the work in person, still impressing people in person with your performances. The rap industry in Atlanta is pretty concentrated out in the open. It's relationships with them that get you going. So because of that, I haven't had to depend on the internet like most Canadian rappers do, just because the market's not there for them. I don't really know what it is that makes me pop off in certain places, and even it down to what makes certain posts pop off. Because I'm another reason that I am very grateful and very lucky to have found Atlanta and to have found a place that the old school in-person world still exists, is I'm not really designed for the modern day internet, immediate like short attention spans, instant gratification. Like, I don't have face tattoos and rainbow hair, and I'm not beating people up, and like I don't have gimmicks that do benefit that type of character on the internet. That's just not me. So to answer the question, I don't know how that's happened, and prior to this pandemic, I wasn't actually that active online. So if you look at me, you see the blue check marks and you see all this stuff that looks like legit. It's like, oh, okay, he's popping, but that's really the result of the work in the streets. And online, it's a world that I don't want to say I hesitated to jump into, but how the pandemic has helped me is that there was no other option. So it's like, all right, let's just jump in.
Right. And well, but I think maybe it's a testament to your music, right? And your ability to entertain and provide the sound, but also it seems like being able to have that old school influence and kind of get that off the ground first. It's almost, you're lucky, not lucky because you have the talent to do it, but to be able to be in this situation and get out in front of people when you could kind of maybe helped build that foundation to allow you to kind of push forward now through social media and digital, right? So now that you've been doing that, what have you learned? What have you been doing differently? Like, what has the experience been like for you being on all of these different interviews and trying to remain in people's minds?
So I think for right now, during this pandemic, especially in the music industry, there's still a lot of it being figured out. So, I'm proudly independent, staunchly independent. I've turned down everything that's come my way that comes with strings attached, that major label strings attached, like in spite of the benefit it comes with. But that being said, the industry generally looks to the majors and looks to the experienced, veterans of the industry for sort of like for guidance. Like, a few years ago, the blog era ended, like when blogs had, supreme influence in rap music and like new popular music. When that era ended and it sort of moved to streaming and playlists, then it's sort of, the labels understood that game and the labels built a relationship with the playlist curators. Right now, though, I don't think that no one's figured it out, and the strategies that are working are pretty kind of like just logical, straightforward things. And I haven't seen any breakthrough, at least in rap music, like pop music, anything that's even close to my lane. So the lessons that I have learned um, aren't necessarily about how to function and succeed online, aren't necessarily like a result of the pandemic, but they are still ones that I've learned relatively recently. And the key one is just being there for my audience and engaging my audience directly and personally. And at the beginning of my career, and I guess even up until recently, even after like arriving in Atlanta, I sort of had this, this ego, this chip on my shoulder, like a lot of rappers do, of, well, like I'm the star, I'm the celebrity. So, as for an example, responding to the comments in the comment section of Instagram, oh, that's beneath me, or I don't want to do that, or Robert De Niro doesn't do that shit, or you know what I mean, or if Tupac was alive, he wouldn't be doing that shit. So so you know, that sort of stuff is just not. It's just like not something that a popping rapper does, which is an old school entertainment industry mentality that nowadays it's not how things work, especially at the beginning, because fans want that engagement, and that engagement is provided across the board by artists on their come up. So that was one thing that I learned, and through the process of doing it, because it was sort of like the right thing to do, I started to enjoy that process, and it actually increased my appreciation for my fans, because like, well, I'm doing this on my own. I'm doing this my own way. No one owns a piece of me, so the success that I achieve is sort of like against the odds, and it's totally my fans that are allowing that to happen for me. There's no gatekeepers that push the button for me and then put me on. It's all my fans and my team. So I need to really be there and engage, because like that's going to set the example for future fans. Like, oh yeah, he's in there, he's talking to his people, he's like a real, he's real. So that's the first key lesson, to just be there. And sometimes it's draining. Sometimes it's like I can think of one viral moment that I had. And then after that, there was like, thousands of DMs. And it's like, oh, yeah, I feel compelled to engage them. So that's the major lesson that I've learned recently with online engagement, is to just actually engage meaningfully.
Has that influenced at all, not necessarily your interaction with fans as discussion and connecting online, but has that had any effect on your music and how you make it and what you're considering, or are you still kind of doing your thing and hoping it fits in with this interaction and what fans have seen?
I hadn't thought about the connection, but there has definitely been a more direct lane to authenticity and the real Shah that's happened in the last little while with my music, which is my feeling open in expressing the emotion and the realities that aren't picture perfect. The non-glamorous stuff that before I never would have even thought to put out there. I wouldn't have even thought to allow myself to go deeper with negative thoughts at a certain point. It's just like, no, well, you're hustling, you're grinding, you just keep going. So then, it was probably a personal thing that happened. It's like, all right, we'll just actually process what's happening. And then came, all right, well, this is the emotion that is surrounding me. This is the emotion, like, I'm in a negative place. We'll put it like, let me create out of it. And I guess that did happen before at certain times in life where there's some negative emotion, probably more anger than just feeling, low. But a negative emotion that would work its way into music, but I never put any of that stuff out. So then that was the big shift. I'm like, you know what? And I guess there is a similarity. There is a common link there in that, well, responding to the comments, for example, or engaging my fans often publicly might not be the best look in terms of being, the most popping rapper, right? And the same way, like, putting forth your struggles and the negativity might not be the best move, but like in terms of, well, oh, I'm the Robert De Niro of rap, or whatever Tom Cruise was in the 90s. That's me. That is not, like, that objective is not consistent with putting it all out there, but that's just what it is these days. And then, you can make mistakes. People don't hang on to shit these days like they did in rap music 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I can't say that my music changed by this game that I learned of how to operate online, but there has been a change in parallel across the board.
Sure. I mean, it seems like in this day and age when there's so much out there, maybe it's allowing, in a good way, for people to see the real Shah and still see he's this, the musical talents and whatnot you have, but maybe there's a connection that they get by being like, oh, he is a real person too. There's something to be said about that.
100%, 100%. That connection is the reason why being genuine works. We're not in the gatekeeper era where there's a small finite number of new artists that are presented by the labels that make their way into the stores that sell CDs, and therefore giving the audience a limited choice in who they can like be fans of. Now you can go find anybody on the internet, and it's been like that for a minute. So there is so fans are going to have the ability to connect with whoever they are most deeply attracted to. So then putting yourself out there the most sort of gives yourself the best shot at connecting.
And speaking about connecting, right, a big way of doing that is at shows. You're able to interact and feed off the audience's energy and vice versa, right? You've obviously had to have shows canceled. I'm not sure we know when the next ones will be rescheduled or scheduled for. Like, how has that affected you personally and professionally, and how are you looking at that?
I always try to say things in a positive light, but this was devastating. The pandemic knocking out the industry and live performances was devastating. I'm, like I already said, I'm someone who built my momentum in Atlanta through in person putting into work. And now that meant a lot of relationship building, but along with my performances. So like, especially for a rapper, my performances do stand out. My show game is strong, and that, you know, helped me build my momentum. And then 2020 was leading up to be, you know, a breakout. So South by Southwest I was one of the first artists booked for South by Southwest. And then that led to my team, which is very small, going all in on South by Southwest because we saw it coming from a mile away. So in January and February, we're like, you know what? South by is like a potential game changer. We've done South by before, sort of like in management by crisis mode, just like scrambling. And, you know, magic can happen, but you're not giving yourself the best shot. So we're like, so let's do the opposite of scrambling, and let's put in, you know, 2 months of lead time into this. So and then I had a tour that was to follow South by, and then those two together would have sort of logically connected me to like the summer festival circuit. So all that just being gone, right? Because someone's eating bats in Wuhan sucks. But you have to remain like resilient, and then, you know, like that, and then the online transitions, what we've been talking about. But it's hard to, you know, frame that in any positive way. It was a devastating blow.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be positive. It's unfortunate, right? This has completely changed so much, and there's still so much we don't know about it that we're still trying to adapt and figure it out, right? So, what about, you know, maybe to talk a little bit about your creative process? Like, you know, you probably still want to make music, and you are, but has that changed your approach right now? Thinking about how you're going to make it, how you're going to release it, since we don't know kind of what's coming next, or you're kind of just rolling with it and hoping that we'll get back to shows soon?
For any artist or creative who got hit by the pandemic, who didn't have a plan, doesn't have a plan, the best thing that you could be doing right now is to be creating. I haven't been creating a lot during this pandemic, but the reason for that is positive, I suppose, which is because me putting out more content, specifically more music, is long overdue. So, like a lot of artists, I have this sort of perfectionist aspect to how I view my art, and that's just not the way to go. That's just not the way to operate as an artist in this era. Um, and like that there's sort of the reason that that's not the way to move is because someone finds me on Instagram, they hear a song, whatever it is, especially as an independent artist, then what I rely on is that person then digging deeper, finding my catalog, falling in love with me, becoming a fan. That's the best case scenario because it's the least effort on my part. But up until, you know, at the start of the pandemic, I probably only had 7 or 8 songs out there. And half of those were probably from 2016 when I first started putting music out there. So there's probably only been like, you know, Just Text, Fuck 'Em Up, Poison, Monster. There's probably 4 songs that I've had out since 2017, which is like, you know, unless you have like a real brilliant marketing scheme, that's not going to work. And my persona doesn't even match up with that sort of like elusive type of character that would call for like a limited release strategy. So what the pandemic did do is that I was already in the mode of like, we need to put out more music. And now it's like, well, now there's no excuse because now theoretically people are going to be home consuming more content, which I don't think that's actually happened in music. Like I know it's happened in Netflix and all, like, you know, TV, but regardless, it was like, well, let's just go. So it did affect my distribution strategy, my release strategy, in that just being like, well, there's no like, you know, make the best of this moment, start putting it out there. And that was changed. But the creative process, um, like I said, I just haven't actually been in creative mode because the business side of it has just been relentless.
So Shah, tell me through all this, what's next? Like, what are you working on? What are you thinking about? And how can people access your music?
So if you want to find me, thank you for asking. Anywhere you want to find me, Shah, on social media, everywhere is Day of Shah. So DAYOFSHAH. So on Instagram is probably where I'm, most consistently active. You can find me there. Um, Also online, I've started a partnership. I started collaborating with Northern Touch Music Festival. It's a music festival where I was one of the headliners in person back in the day, last summer. Based in Winnipeg. It's a nonprofit festival. It's really devoted to supporting artists and genres that are underrepresented. And then when the pandemic started, I happened to click up with a couple of the directors, the founder and another one of the directors. And then it's like, you know what? Let's put out knowledge, let's spit game based on sort of my experiences that'll benefit artists, creatives, entrepreneurs. So that's something that's really gained traction and it's moving. So anyone who wants to check that out, Northern Touch Music Fest on Instagram. And other than that, the thing is there's a lot of new music I'm putting out there. So Demons is the song that, like we were talking about just earlier, is the first time that I've really put out there that, like, the deeper my mood, just no holds barred, no polish, no fronting, no, smoke and mirrors is a part of the Atlanta music industry that can go a long way for you. You put on this perfect presentation, people see that you're up, they want to know who's this guy, who's this new guy who's up. They look into you, they like you. Now you have more fans. It's classic Atlanta come up game. But now just, you know, showcasing the downside doesn't really meet up with that. But like we've already discussed, I've done that. So Demons is the song that, if you've already heard my stuff, if you heard Just Text and you heard the stuff that got me popping, this will be a deeper sound. So you can go to Spotify or Apple or wherever you hear music. If you want to hear some classic Shah, then my music video series was one of the first things that ever got me going. So go to youtube.com/Day of Shah. Riding Shoddy is my favorite music video of mine. And then right now we're putting out about a new song every week. So you go find me on Instagram, then you'll see these releases. But Demons is the one that I would say to go check out and, get the deeper me.
I hope you still find success and continue to connect with people as you're trying this kind of new or maturing avenue of accessing people through online as we wait till we can get to shows again.
Yeah, because shows doesn't look like it's gonna happen anytime soon. Like I mentioned, the music industry doesn't know what's next. I have a TV project as well where there's a show that was built, around sort of loosely based on the life of Shah. It's called The Ghostwriter. So I play myself in this thing, and the TV, and from that I've learned the TV industry and maybe the film industry definitely know what they're doing. And as soon as this thing is over, there's checks just waiting to be written. There's going to be like a flood in TV. But in music, it's not really known what's going to go on because, public gatherings will be the last piece to come back when things start to open up. So it is a question mark. Rap isn't the music that best translates to like virtual performances, like live performances for a rapper with nobody there. Such a big component of the experience for the audience is the vibe that's around you. It's not just what the performer's doing, but it's what the performer's doing to everyone else, right? There's this concept called collective effervescence where it's an emotion that's collectively felt by an audience. Sometimes it happens, like it's said to happen in churches, where they do the knockdown shit where the guy will hit his jacket and all the people fall down. Like, and music and shows is the biggest setting for collective effervescence, which that's, it doesn't work the same way when it's just you on the screen. So that part we have to still figure out. But as an artist, you just have to create, put it out there, and stay ready.
It seems like you have a good approach and you're doing everything you can, so that's great.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe that if you're smart and then you work hard and then you do the right thing, if you have those three things going for, even if you have two of those things of intelligence, hard work, and then doing what's right, and then you go all out, even with two of those things over the long term, I wholeheartedly believe that you'll find success. So me, I'm good with all three of them. So yeah, I have no worries, but I also have ADHD and I'm impatient and I want my shit now. So, you know,
Well, hopefully you'll get that soon, man. I really appreciate it.
appreciate you, my dog Bradcast. I'm so happy to have been here. I'm so happy to have been here. I got one last shout out. We got Nia the dog. You want to be on? You want to be famous? Nia, how you gonna hide? There we go. Nia, what up? Look at that.
Yeah, so Nia's available for adoption, right? You're fostering her?
Rescue Me GA is an organization that we linked up with. They brought Nia in. She's brought love and joy. And if someone wants to rescue this little rascal long term, then just hit up Rescue Me GA on Instagram and make magic happen.
I know she's a great dog, so anyone would be lucky to have her.
Hey, facts.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.